with something just a tad different. We're still working in FlStudio. However, this is going to be a little bit more of a tutorial session rather than me just working on a track. One that is commonly looked up is it's actually more say a common genre nowadays, and one that people like to replicate and work in a lot is trap. And we are actually going to be doing a small trap beat tutorial today. Nothing super long. If people like it, I might try and do something longer or in depth, but for now it's just a simple beat. I have pre-made one right here. Super simple, 4 measures. Let's take a listen to it, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so I take it back, it's actually only 2 measures. But that's it. Let's break it down some. Let's solo this. Let's listen to the kick line. All right. So take a listen to the what next? The hi-hat next. Alright, what is next? Listen to the snare. It's super simple, but we're going to listen to it anyways. Alright, next is... This kick down here is exactly the same as the one prior, but we'll listen to it anyways. Let's listen to them together. Alright, next up we have the ride. We're actually going to mix that with the kick because that's what it's supposed to go with. Alright, we're gonna throw in the ice. It says it's a hi-hat, but I used it for just a filler. Now we have that. Oh, I forgot to mention that this is all done with sounds that come with FlStudio, just the demo version, so you won't need any outside sample packs or anything. It's just everything within FlStudio. I intentionally did that because I know some people don't have all the fancy packs or can't find them, so I figured I'd show you something with the ones that come with it. So we'll add this crash on there. Alright, so next we actually have our melody. Now, when you get to trap and doing melodies, there's so many layers to it. It's not just one sound, it's multiple overlapping. So in this one, I actually only have 2. I'll let you listen to them separate first. So honestly, when making any music, it's always good to have variation at the end of your melody to set it apart and help it transition back to the beginning. And with trap, simple 4-note rhythms are really easy to do and they sound good. And you either want to go from low to really high or really high to really low, depending on the style that you're going for. Having notes right next to each other, it's too light and melodic, and it's for lighter themed stuff like EDM and house. Marshmello's music has a lot of melodic chords really close to each other. But trap, you want to go from low to high. So in this case, we have I was a little off, but you get the point. Alright, now what you want to do when layering things is you don't want just a bunch of sounds overlapping. They need to be different kinds of sounds. The first one, the pulsar, it's a snappy sound, not very long, a little bit of delay on it, but no reverb. Now with the classic right here, it's very strings. Trap and rap use a lot of strings in their melodies and rhythms, so that's what this is. It's got a lot of reverb on it, and if you mix that with the snappiness of the first one, you get something that sounds like this. And it sounds really good. It loops really well, and it meshes nice. All right, so now we're gonna add the kick. Since this is a really simple trap beat, I did not add any 808. If you're making a full song, you would want to add 808. That'd be something you do towards probably the end after you had your melody and everything set, or at the very beginning and basing everything off of your 808. So now that you've heard it all, kind of see what it is, let's go into just the technical side of it. With this kick, the reason that it's so low is because I foregone, however you want to say. I went without the 808. I took a regular kick. This is what it sounds like. Very house and trancey, and I just lowered it to get the low, dirty sound that's more bassy than kick. And that's why I actually mixed it with this higher kick that's more treble, more hearing than feeling. And then when you hear them together, they mesh pretty well. I mean, it's not too bad. All right, and so with the specific pattern that I'm using here, in trap, a good rule of thumb to go by, you don't always want to stick to just this, but it's a good rule to go by, is to use odd numbered notes. So right here you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces in between. And the next one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces in between, 5 notes, however you want to call it, and then 1, and then it goes back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this is where I actually broke it up at the end. And like I said earlier, at the end, you kind of want variation to transition back to the beginning. So this I actually only skip 2, but if you count all the spaces in between your variation back to the transition, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it kind of goes around it, but it still sticks to that core rule. All right. Now with the hi-hat. Hi-hats are usually not really fast, but they're the faster playing notes in your song or in your beat, your track, whatever you want to call it. So this is every one, and then occasionally for some change up, it plays every note. Now I forgot to say, I'm just in regular step. I'm not in half step or anything. And this is the variation. Usually the variation's at the end. I put my variation right before. Silent notes are always good to have. It gives a little relief to the track and a little bit of life to it. All right. Now with the snare, in any EDM or just any song, even on the drums, a good example is on the drums. The snare comes in either every fourth or every half or every eighth. It sticks to the even numbers. So in this case, where am I? I don't even know where I'm at. Oh yeah, instead of doing every fourth, we did a fourth, an eighth, a fourth, an eighth, which is actually a 4, 7. It's actually a little off, but basically we skipped every other note. We did here is we filled each 4 steps, and then we took off the beginning of each bar. So you have with the snares, you want something really, really snappy, something that stands out from the rest of the beat. And this was actually an 808 snare that was in the snare section under the drum pack that comes with FlStudio. It's the 808 snare. You can go all different kinds of snares in here. I just felt that was more appropriate. It's very snappy. See, it's really dirty and it's really prolonged. You want something that hits, rather than something that's just just thrown in there as dirty. See, that's too dirty. That's got too much tom in it. It's very hollow, very loud, or very light. See, that would work, but it's got too much clap in it. It lasts too long. It's you want something that is just like you're snapping your fingers, just. Yeah, that's pretty simple there. With the rides and the crashes. Okay, so with rides and crashes, you can do either one of two things. You can follow a steady rhythm of 4s or 5s or 7s, depending on how you think it should sound, or you can go with the kicks. On this first one, on the crash, I went every 4 and then a random 3 in there, just kind of how I felt it should sound. Then with the ride, with rides, that carries your notes over, and with the kicks being so far from each other, I use the ride to carry each kick to the next. And it adds a little bit of, not really snap, but it adds a little bit of punch to your kicks also. All right. Now with this, I mentioned earlier, I pretty much went over what I was gonna say. You want to go from low to high, skip 4, 5, 6 notes, high to low, and you want to change it up at the end. And it's always a good idea to cut notes in half to double up on the notes. So if I were to keep it regular, it's not awful sounding, but it's kind of plain. But if you add the doubles to it, now with certain sounds it'll stick out more. This one's already kind of chippy, so it doesn't stick out too much. But in the classic, whenever on the string, that stands out a lot more, and it sounds really good. Alright, and these are both from Citrus. When starting out, or honestly when making just beats in general, I highly recommend using Citrus. It's got a lot of great sounds, and it gives you a lot of options. This is a little more advanced stuff. I didn't mess with any of this, but getting into the oscillators and what these are called operators, and changing these and mixing them to give you different sounds. It's a little more advanced, but it's definitely, I highly recommend using it once you get used to FlStudio itself. Alright, see, in all these presets, it comes with hundreds, honestly, of sounds. It's awesome. I love it. It's the one that I actually use the most. Alright, and another good sound or type of sound to use in trap are wind sounds. What's another one on here for the wind? Not so much that. Trumpets in certain situations can be really nice. In the higher octaves of the trumpet, it can be a good use for where I used the Polestar. Now I gotta find Polestar again. I believe it's in the sequencer. So that's basically it right there. It's a very simple trap beat. I did this in 3 minutes, 5 minutes maybe. Very short amount of time. And let's listen to it a couple more times, and that'll be it for this.